The reason why so little research goes into women's bodies and the reason why society is so hesitant on doing more research into women's bodies is because the patriarchy would not be able to survive. The more you research into the woman's body, the more you found out that the more and more patriarchy just looks like utter and complete bullshit made up by these parasites that we call men. Men have an extreme disdain for girls and women, and that is the whole reason why they started the patriarchy. And they use the lies of the woman's body to justify the evil and inhumane treatment of girls and women, not to justify it for themselves, but to justify it for women. So we as women can justify, we're supposed to be some men to men. That's why men treat us this way, because this is how it's supposed to be. And us wanting rights is going against on the natural way of living, so men have every right to be mad. That is why men make up these lies. Do not justify, to feed their ego and to make women and girls think the inhumane treatment of us is okay when it is not. Because if you take away the lies, men literally did all of this just because they have a disdain for girls and women. Because when you think, men have literally treated girls and women like absolute shit just because they woke up and was like, oh, we're better than y'all, so we're gonna treat you, take away all your rights away. For what? For what reason? Because none of the lies about the patriarchy was true. So when you take all of it away, it truly becomes men are just evil, egotistical, narcissistic, manipulative pedophiles. Because what other reason would you have, like, the way we normalize like what men have done to women and girls throughout history and what men still do to girls and women now, just because always back in the day? Why did they start this? What was the reason for them to start all of this? And once you realize men did all of this just because they have a disdain for us, then you realize men will never change. And then you realize the only way for us, the girls and women, to be free, safe, and happy is if we get rid of these parasites. They are parasites, and we have to kill all men for us to be free, safe, and happy. We as women need to make a collective decision. It's either the happiness and freedom of girls and women or just having men around. And I'm seeing more girls and women start to choose the happiness and freedom of girls and women and just killing off these parasites. Now, in this video, I'm going to be going through the information that we found out about the woman's body with only 5% of research. In the second half of the video, this video is probably going to be 2 parts. I will be covering self-impregnation, but that's going to be for the second half. But this video I'm going to be covering all the information that we have found out about women's bodies, just a lot of the major things that really debunk the patriarchy. So let's get into it. Sorry, I know I had a long intro. So the first thing we found out is that women are better leaders than men across all measures, and women are better leaders during a crisis. Now, men and pygmies have used the lie that girls and women are too emotional and irrational to lead or hold any positions of power, for centuries to oppress women and keep us down and keep us out of position of power, keep us submissive, and keep us oppressed, while also using this lie to keep men in positions of power and keep men withholding power and forbidding women of leading things that have to do with their own bodies and our own health and letting men lead with that. Another thing we found out is that girls and women are smarter than men and boys. Now, throughout her story, there has been a multitude of lies told about the intelligence of girls and women and the cognitive ability of girls and women. There was also a popular lie back in the day that our brains were the size of peas and attached to our wombs, and if we got educated, our wombs would explode. Now, even though these lies sound ridiculous, these were widespread beliefs and by men and pygmies, and meant very much, in fact, use these lies to justify doing a multitude of inhumane things to girls and women, like not allowing us to get an education and saying the reason why we marry y'all off, force y'all to get married young, is because y'all cognitive ability is so low, and the only thing y'all will put on oath to do is be wives and mothers. So us not giving y'all an education is not us being mean and misogynistic. It's just y'all was not meant to get an education. And also men using the lie that our wombs will explode if we get an education. They also try to spin it as the reason why we're not letting you get educated is to protect you because your wombs will explode. Men love disguising oppression as protection to get women to believe that they are not holding us, that they are just doing this to protect us. We also found out that period blood can be used to save lives, and period blood also heals faster than plasma with up to 100% healing rate. Now, periods have been something that throughout history men have labeled as sinful, demonic, disgusting, even making us go through cleansing while we are on our periods, putting us in different period houses, calling it disgusting, gross, grotesque, making jokes about it, and just simply making fun of women for having this bodily function. Periods have been labeled as just terrible and disgusting. Now the cramps are terrible, but but the blood is actually amazing and full of stem cells, and the things we can do with it is just absolutely amazing. And it truly shows you this thing that has been labeled as disgusting over so many years and by many men has so much healing properties. Like, we as women are truly amazing, and what the things our bodies can do, like even if we are not growing life, we can still save lives. We also found out women's egg quality stays stable with age. It's the demon's parasites that have a black biological clock. Another interesting thing we found out is that the health and quality of the demon's parasites can determine a lot of your symptoms with pregnancy, determine how bad your morning sickness is, how bad your pregnancy is, and a multitude of other things. And also the health of the demon's parasites can also determine whether or not the baby has birth defects or not. Now, a lot of these things were originally blamed on women. Oh, the reason why the baby came out this way is because y'all old hags are having babies. And also men using this lie that or we just go kaput after we turn adults to justify them, forcing young girls to get married and justifying their pedophilic desires by just saying, oh, because you'll just go kaput after 18. It's just men being the evil, disgusting pedophiles they are. But another thing that I want to touch on is how it's saying that the health quality of the men's parasites can determine whether or not if the baby has birth defects. The reason why we as a society are so behind, like medically and biologically evolutionary wise, is because men have so much access to women. Women are naturally meant to be selective to choose the best for their offspring. Even how the egg produces what's it called, like some type of hormone to get the healthiest parasites to come after her. We are naturally meant to be selective, but men and the patriarchy eliminate that. So now men have more access to women, causing us not to be selective and choosing the best for all future offspring. But I'm going to make a video about that later. The last thing I'm going to talk about before I end the video is that the best ages for women to give birth and the highest fertility ages for women is 25 to 30. For years and years and centuries, men have been using the lie that we are best photo when we are children to justify the evil and sick, disgusting pedophilic desires, when really men are just evil, sick pedophiles who like little girls. Because there was no reason, even to this day, men have used this lie to not only justify their evil and sick pedophilic desires, but to justify years and years of stealing the childhoods of billions of girls, even still to this day. This lie that we are most fertile when we are children has been used to steal the childhoods of billions of girls. It is sick and it is disgusting, but the video is at the 10-minute mark now, so stay tuned for part 2, diving deeper into this and self-impregnation. Bye, and thanks for watching. Before I start this video, I want y'all to watch a
structure can be readily seen on a dermoid cyst. Fibroid tumors are the result of the vibrations budding along the reproductive organs and tract, but not being able to start the mitosis, and so they just act as little buds throughout the reproductive area, especially when meat is present in great degrees in that female system. You didn't hear either of those things either, did you? No, I know you didn't. Well, then buy the tape. The word conception means to conceive mentally. Look it up. The word conception, first IBID definition, means to conceive mentally, not to conceive in the womb. Take a deep breath. Now we get to the real rough stuff. You thought this was rough? This was nothing. Now it gets rough. Man descended from woman. Circumcision is the artificial means to finalize that separation, and when the race of man was having a hard time making it here, especially certain kinds of man, human man, the foreskin tried to cover the penis just as it is cloaked in the clitoris, and consequently, the male had to actually cut off this foreskin as he tried to become what he once was, a woman. The male testes is a woman's descended ovum now encased within the scrotum. The male penis is an elongated clitoris. The female fallopian tubes, named by Fallopius again in 1523, is nothing more than the male vas deferens or urethra duct, which is both of the fallopian tubes joined together, an amalgamation of the fallopian ducts. The male prostate, which males usually by the time of 12 to 40 have problems with, and usually don't even function well after 40, the reason why is now going to be explained to you. It is nothing more than an atrophied womb. And every man has the vestibular mammary glands that go along with it, and during times of pregnancy of a woman can lactate. And during times of the month can lactate too, especially if those mammary glands are titillated or excited. I know it's rough to hear it and take it, but you think about it, and when you find me wrong, then we'll talk about it. The bulbourethral glands of the male are equal to the larger so-called vestibular glands of the woman. It simply means that amongst the male gland reproductive is a gland called the orchic. How many men know where their orchics are? How many men knew you had an orchic? How many women know that you have 3 glands that you've never been told about, and one of them you've only partially been told about? That's why I list it as a third. Don't leave yet then. The female thyroid gland has 3 lobes. The male thyroid gland has 2 lobes. And the reason why the female thyroid gland has 3 lobes is because she tries to store up thyroxine through iodine storage and is always usually craving it in a deficient way. The chemical iodine we get here is not the sodium iodine that she needs, and she's always craving iodine. The closest substitute is simply iron. It is not the substitute though. Seaweed and plants like chlorella and chlorophyll-containing water plants give her most of those proficient things. Land plants usually can't make the grades, and most of the women that take chlorophyll will find this from alfalfa. That's why they're not satisfied physically in their thyroid reproduction. Thyroxine is not rich from land plants, which also have chemicals within them. Hear well something I know no other white man or black man has told anybody in here, and then all you have to do is do the research to see if it is true. The other 2 female secret glands is one called the epiphoron, E-P-O-O-P-H-O-R-O-N, the epiphoron. In good physiological guides and studies of physiognomy, it is between the ovary and the uterus in what is called the mesosphinx. Yes, M-E-S-O-S-A-P-I-N-X, the mesosphinx. And look it up in your physiological text, or just go to a med store near a pre-med college, and you don't even have to take it out. Just glance through, look it up, write it down, and leave the book there. Within the Apuphorone in the Mesosphinx is something called the Parophorone. P-A-R-O-O-P-H-O-R-O-N, the Parophorone. It produces seminal fluid and seminal secretions, just like in a male. Those glands, in many cases, are atrophied.
I'm going to post the full video because it's a really good video. I had to stop it there because it was going into some other really good stuff, but right now we're specifically talking about self-impregnation. So everything he's saying in this video is 110% true. And this is one of the main reasons why so little research goes into women's bodies, is because we start finding out stuff like this, which really debunks all of men's patriarchal bullshit nonsense of them trying to say that they are superior over us. Even if you look at fetal genital development and realizing that at the that both genitals look the same for 6 weeks, and then the male, something sends in the body that it is a male, and that's when the male genitals start to change. And even if you look, and then the girl genitals, it keeps going along how it was going to go along. And if you look at photos of fetal genital development, it's very obvious that not only is the male reproductive system just a modified version of the female reproductive system, men are just modified versions of women. These parasites even have non-functioning woman parts down there. And they also have, like he said earlier in the video, men do have mammary glands and men can breastfeed. And again, men have multiple non-functioning woman parts. So it's obviously very obvious that men are just genetically modified versions of women. He is not the first person to say this. Valerie Sardone, which I recommend all women look into her, and all women should read her book, The Scum Manifesto. But she said so many good stuff in this book, but she was saying that men are genetically modified versions of women, and that the Y chromosome is just a broken X chromosome, which makes so much sense, and I'm gonna go into it right now. There has been multiple problems with the X chromosome, even with a lot of scientists saying that it's getting smaller, which, if you think about it, this makes sense. The X chromosome is bigger than the Y chromosome, but it wasn't always like this. They said that at some point it was the same size as the X chromosome, which makes sense when they first broke off the chromosome. So if you have the X and Y chromosome, and basically if you literally just take one leg off the X, then it becomes a Y chromosome. So obviously when they first broke the chromosome, we first genetically modified them, the Y chromosome will obviously be just as big as the X chromosome because it just got broken off, it just got made. But since it's a broken chromosome and men are genetic mutations, then it would make sense it's going to get smaller as time goes on, because it is a mutation, it is not an actual chromosome. And not only is this mutation chromosome getting smaller, but it is also generating and losing genes, because this is not an actual chromosome. Like Valerie Sardone said, men are genetically mutations. Men are not full humans, and she said they are abortions from the start, which is true, leading to why men have so many problems and why men are so cognitively behind us. They are mutations. They are abortions from the start, as she said. Now I want to talk about self-impregnation and how women do not need men to reproduce. Now, this is the gland that he was talking about, the Apophorone gland. Now, of course, we're going to say it's non-functioning, but it's not. Keep in mind, only 5% of research goes into women's bodies, so they really do not know nothing about our bodies at all. And especially with something like this, giving us the means to self-impregnate, they are not going to want to do any research into this. Now, if we look at what is the function of this, it is representing structures that would have four male reproductive parts. Now, we obviously know that this is bullshit, that this is a naturally woman reproductive part, but you know they're obviously going to lie about that. But now, if we look at the function of the poop balloon, temporary storage of sperm. So now, we can produce sperm. This apophyllene gland is a sperm producer. Now, this is huge. We have a apophyllene gland that can produce sperm, and also there is a fact out there that is 110% true. Women's eggs can self-activate. So not only do we have sperm-producing glands inside of us, but we also have eggs that can self-activate. Now, why is no research going into this? Think about it. Because men know they treat women like shit. So, and men have created this lie that they are better and superior than us for nothing off of no facts. So if we research women's bodies, we will 110% find out women can impregnate themselves. And what does that leave men? The useless dog shits they are. Another thing, women also during sexual arousal can produce white liquid and whitish fluid. Now, how come nobody's asking where this fluid is coming from? It's probably coming from the apophyllene, and it is probably sperm, but nobody's researching this, nobody's looking into this. And this is a very unknown fact that women can produce this white liquid during sexual arousal because women's sexual arousal is so oppressed, with 98% of women all over the world having not experienced an orgasm. And now you can realize the reason why women's sexual liberation and women's sexual pleasure is so oppressed is because they don't want this fighting out. The men have been repressing the truth for a while. Throughout history, women experiencing sexual pleasure has been seen as bad and demonic. And this is all because men don't want women knowing we can impregnate ourselves. Even women or clitorises have been cut off throughout history, even still to this day. Our genitals have been mutilated. Sex has been looked at something that is only supposed to be pleasurable for men, and that we are just host bodies. And this is very pushed out there. Women are not supposed to be having sex. Sex is not supposed to be pleasurable to us because of this. Because men do not want us knowing that we can produce this. So it's very rare that you see even when men see women producing this whitish fluid, I'm talking about, oh, she must have a yeast infection, that's nasty. But no, it is 110% natural. But they can't have us finding this out, because we are going to start researching. We'll start going looking at, hey, what is this white fluid? Men are not, because no way in hell are men going to let women know that, hey, we can impregnate ourselves. This is why they have to repress the sexual pleasure of women. This is why they call women experiencing sexual pleasure demonic. This is why they cut off our clitorises and mutilate our private parts, because this is how far men are willing to go to uphold their unnatural power. And this is why I want to get and tell women, men are not changing. They are genetically mutated, they are behind cognitively, and there is no way to get them back on track or onto our level. We as women need to realize our true power, and that we are goddesses, and that men are useless, and men will continue to destroy Mother Nature and the true power of women if we do not stop them. And by stopping them, I mean killing every single man on earth, because they are not going to change. And they are all predators, and they will continue to oppress us. They need to go, all of them.